So, hi everyone, and welcome to the second in our series of webinars designed to give you the information that you need to help your business succeed online. So, for those of you that didn't tune in last time, my name's Alex. I'm the SEO manager here at Clicky, and today I'm going to be taking you through some of the most common mistakes that we see in terms of e-commerce SEO and how to fix them. So, just to give you a bit of insight into how I'm going to structure this, I'm going to go over popular e-commerce platforms and their quirks, trust signals, quality and authority, and then crawler friendliness. And after that, we're going to end on a short Q&A session. So without further ado, let's dive in. So there are countless e-commerce platforms available out there, and that ranges from widely used systems to more bespoke solutions. I could probably spend quite a while listing all them out, but for the sake of brevity and making this applicable to the majority of the viewers, I thought I'd highlight 5 of the most common e-commerce platforms that we encounter, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the benefits and challenges of each platform. So the ones that I'm going to cover up on the screen at the moment, so that's Magento, WooCommerce, Magento II, BigCommerce, and Shopify. Before we start looking into the platforms in a little bit more detail, I thought it would be useful to run through their market share. So I've bundled Magento 2 and Magento 1 into the same group, just for the sake of ease, and it's resulted in a pretty resounding market share lead for the platform. Second up in the market share, unsurprisingly, is Shopify. The fact that it's pretty much ready to go out of the box and that you don't have to worry about hosting and things like that make it a very attractive platform for stores that are just starting up. Thirdly, and this one was a bit of a surprise as it's my favorite to use, is WooCommerce. It's a pretty powerful e-commerce platform. It integrates with almost anything, and it's perfect for e-commerce stores of most sizes. And the fact that it comes as part of WordPress means that it's easy to integrate a blog, and you've got comprehensive control of the SEO elements of the site. Fourth in the list is BigCommerce. Whilst I'd say that the market share for this one is warranted, it's not the most scalable or technically friendly platform. If you're looking for an easy way to spin up an e-commerce store and you're not precious about editing elements such as your HT access or having access to FTP, then it's a fairly safe option. Personally, I think Shopify does this in the exact same way, but with a nicer interface. Okay, so now that we're up to date with the platforms and their market share, let's take a closer look at each. So first up is Magento. So the first instance of Magento was released in 2008, so it's getting on a little bit now. Anyone with experience with the platform will also know that whilst Magento 2 has been released, support for Magento 1 is still going to continue through to 2020, so that's comforting for anyone that isn't looking to upgrade anytime soon. Having said that, if you have got a fairly large Magento 1 site, it is probably about time to start planning it. The platform itself is open source, and it's built using PHP. It tends to be the choice for larger e-commerce businesses, as it's arguably one of the more scalable choices when it comes to e-commerce platforms. Although, as with any platform, it does have its downfalls. So one of the biggest in my eyes is how it deals with faceted navigation. For those of you not aware of what faceted navigation is, it refers to being able to filter through pages through the use of attributes, which then creates a new page or experience for the user. I'm going to break this down really simply. So, for example, if you had a dresses category on your fashion e-commerce site, they'd probably be available in multiple different sizes and colors. So a faceted navigation would allow you to filter by size and by color. However, if you're not careful, this could involve creating a new page each time a filter is added. So for example, /dresses could become /dresses, /maxi dresses, or even /dresses, /maxi dresses, /red. It could even get a bit crazy at times where multiple filters of the same type can result in even more pages. So for example, /dresses, /maxi dresses, /red, /green. So there are multiple different ways to stay on top of a faceted navigation, but my personal recommendation is to only allow one URL per filter combination. So for example, you couldn't use multiple colors to generate multiple URLs, but you could still add a size and generate a new URL. I then canonicalize any filters back to the main category unless you've got enough resource to make them all unique URLs in their own right, which would probably be the ideal scenario. If you do decide to canonicalize them all, then I wouldn't consider that the end of the matter. I'd recommend that you try to create unique content for all of your canonicalized pages over time and remove canonical tags when you do, as it'll give you more opportunity to serve a more targeted page for long-tail queries, such as red dresses or red maxi dresses. Something else to watch out for in Magento is the search function. So in many cases, searching for something on a Magento site will create a query string URL, essentially making that a page in its own right. If someone then links to that page, Google may well try and index that page, and if you're not careful, you'll end up with a lot more pages of Google's index than you bargained for. The easiest way to get around this, and I think this is default on a lot of Magento sites, is to use your robots.txt file to set up a rule to block search engines from indexing search results pages. So moving on from Magento 1, we have Magento 2. This is basically the successor to Magento 1, and it was released in 2015. It's very similar in a lot of ways, as it's essentially just an upgraded version. It's very easy to scale up, and it's the choice for most large-scale, up-to-date e-commerce stores these days. Unfortunately, it suffers from most of the same issues that Magento 1 suffers from, such as the duplicate content caused by faster navigation and the search page results being indexed. In addition to this, there are a couple more things to be aware of. Firstly, you'll find that things such as titles and descriptions, which are your first point of contact with the user in search, are all set to default rules, and that usually makes them less user-friendly. So unfortunately, the only way to fix this is by manually updating them, which I'd recommend is done after sort of keyword research and working out exactly what keywords you want those titles and descriptions to contain. The other is usually non-friendly URL structures. So by this, I mean that by default, you'll find that URLs are set to include store codes and may include .index-php at the end. To change that, you'll just need to set web server rewrites to yes in the config panel in Magento, and ensure that no is ticked for add store codes to URLs. All in all, Magento as a platform is a pretty solid choice for an e-commerce business that's looking to scale up and be search engine friendly. So moving on from Magento 2 is WooCommerce. This platform is probably my favorite, and it's one that Clicky tend to work on the most due to the fact that it integrates seamlessly with WordPress, which is usually our CMS of choice when building our new sites. The platform itself was launched in 2011, and it's just increased in popularity as the years have rolled on. It tends to play nicely with lots of other systems as well, such as MailChimp. So if you're interested in running email campaigns that talk directly to your site, WooCommerce is probably your best bet in terms of ease and speed. However, as with every platform, it doesn't come without its quirks. So, for example, you'll find that your default URL structure for category pages is /product-category/category-name, which puts all of your products one step further down in the folder structure of your site. That's not really ideal for SEO. But fortunately, there's an easy fix for this, and it's just a case of changing your permalink settings in WordPress, followed by implementing the necessary redirects for that. As a final point on WooCommerce, if you are going to create a store, have a custom theme created. The reason that I say this is because most default pages work in a way that tabbed contents, if you think at the bottom of an e-commerce store, sometimes you'll have different tabs for different types of attribute. They tend to be hidden from search engines in most of the default themes in WooCommerce, and it could affect your site's ability to rank well. So I'd really recommend a custom theme for that. But all in all, WooCommerce is a pretty solid platform, and I'd recommend it to most sizes of e-commerce business. So next up, I'm going to go over BigCommerce. This platform is one that I admittedly haven't had as much experience with, but I know that it's fairly widely used. It was launched in 2009, and in my eyes, it's a really, really simple, out-of-the-box e-commerce platform, which is popular for businesses who don't have development resource and just want to get a store online and start selling. Unfortunately, as it's so out of the box, there's really a lack of options to make technical amends to the site. So you're pretty much given control over page content and stock, but anything deeper is pretty difficult to edit. So if you have in-house development or you outsource to an agency, BigCommerce probably isn't the best route to go down. We tend to recommend that any e-commerce store has a blog of some kind, which is easy for something like WooCommerce, but it's fairly difficult to integrate a blog into BigCommerce. So that's something to be aware of if you're considering it as well. So BigCommerce, in summary, is an entry-level platform, and it's mostly for those looking for a quick e-commerce site. However, if you plan on expanding, it's probably not one for you. So last up, we've got Shopify. So it's pretty similar to BigCommerce in the sense that it's ready out of the box and that it's fairly easy to control. It also runs off cloud servers, so you don't even need to worry about things like hosting, which is really convenient. Unfortunately, there are some drawbacks, and they're mostly to do with the fact that you're having to fit your store into the mold that Shopify provides. So you can't really edit technical elements such as your robots or your HT access, which are pretty important for any SEO campaign. You also can't go with any URL structure apart from their default. So for category pages, for example, that would usually be /collections or something similar, and then /category name. Again, this pushes your categories one step further down your folder structure, which isn't massively ideal for SEO. One thing that Shopify does do quite nicely, though, is minimize the work that you need to do for redirects due to the way that they're handled in the platform. So that's a bit of a blessing in disguise. As I mentioned earlier, Shopify is quite similar to BigCommerce, but it's more powerful and it's a bit more sleek, a bit easy to use. So if you're looking for an out-of-the-box solution and you haven't got much development resource or you don't have any at all, then I'd recommend Shopify. So now that we've gone through a few platforms and their quirks, let's jump into the most common e-commerce SEO errors that we see on a day-to-day basis and how to fix them. So first up, I'm going to cover trust signals. So the most important trust signal from an SEO perspective is having an SSL certificate. So that is having your site on HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. So Google themselves has said that they place more weight on sites with an SSL certificate in search, and they are a huge trust signal for users, and they do help with conversion. So basically, if nothing else, from any of these trust signals, you should have an SSL certificate installed. And I say this from an e-commerce point of view, but this is really applicable to any other site as well. So another thing that's a really, really large trust signal are reviews. So I talked about how they were big for local SEO last time out, but they are a factor both in terms of rankings and conversion. Everyone finds social proof helpful when making purchase decisions too, so they can really help with conversion. The other factors are less important from a search point of view, so the factors that I've put in this slide, but they do help to enhance the customer experience on your site, which, if you ask me, that'll have a positive impact on SEO anyway, because Google value things like a really good user experience. So things like including multiple payment methods, structuring your contact pages correctly, and including any badges from governing bodies or authorities to make your site seem more authoritative or trustworthy will help to build trust in your site, in your brand, and that'll be carried through with users and then to search engines as a whole. And that brings us quite nicely on to quality and authority. So generally speaking, Google wants to send users to sites which are authoritative and that provide a great user experience. And that's relevant across any industry. However, there are a couple of factors that e-commerce sites in particular tend to fall foul of. And I find myself that these are the use of interstitials. So an interstitial is basically a pop-up window and pushy sales copy. So I'll go through those a little bit separately. So interstitials have become commonplace on most sites, despite the fact that most people seem to dislike them, which is always a mystery to me. And Google's included in that list of people. So in January 2017, Google actually rolled out a mobile interstitial algorithm update. So basically that penalizes sites that serve intrusive interstitials to their mobile users when they enter the site from search. So for example, if someone has just clicked on your homepage from search results and you serve them with this huge pop-up that covers all the content on the screen, they can't do anything else apart from interact with that interstitial, that's going to be bad. So if your site is guilty of something like that and you saw ranking drops in January 2017, you're probably seeing that in action. They can also cause users to exit your site almost as quickly as they enter, which is known as pogo sticking. And pogo sticking to Google can also make them decrease your rankings because it makes your site look less high quality. So that brings me on to pushy sales copy, which can also harm your site's ability to rank. You'll generally find that most sales copy or pushy sales copy is quite low quality and generally not geared towards helping a user. So it's already not going to help your search visibility. Aside from that, it'll likely put users off and could cause them to bounce after a single page session, which will be used by Google's ranking algorithms to decide when ranking your site in search. So the bottom line from both of those is just think about your users a little bit more and focus on selling a high quality product with a good offer, and you'll find yourself ranking well. So the final point that I've got here is around crawler friendliness. By this, I'm referring to how easy your site is to read, understand, and index by Google search crawlers. So this is a big consideration for e-commerce sites in particular, as they tend to be the largest type of sites due to the extensive product ranges, categories, subcategories, filters, faster navigation, all those sort of things I've been talking about. So the bigger your site is, the more crucial it becomes to make sure that it's as easy as possible for search engines to access and index. So common issues that we see in terms of those sort of factors are things like an illogical site hierarchy. So if you've categorized your site in a very strange way and you're not making it easy to understand to crawlers or users, that's going to hinder your progress. Poor URL structure. So if your URL structure doesn't really reflect the journey through your site, that reflects your structure, then again, this is going to be something that will hold you back. One of the biggest things that we have seen is the third one on this list. So an unbounded amount of pages due to duplication and filters that can just expand your site massively. It can cause a massive amount of bloating in Google's index, and it can confuse them as to which pages to crawl, which pages are the primary versions of each page, and it's really, really bad for search. So when looking at an e-commerce store, we always tend to look at their size first and see if we can cut that down and see if there are any pages that are indexed that shouldn't be. That's where I'd recommend you start if you do have a large e-commerce site. Similarly, we've got a lack of canonical or no index tags signifying page relationships. So it might be the case that you have two very similar pages, but you haven't used a canonical on one of them to signify the primary version, which will confuse Google as to which one to rank for a particular keyword. And similarly, if you've got a page that is almost a duplicate of another, but it's there for a certain purpose, but you don't want Google to read it, there should be a no index tag on that to make sure Google doesn't get it confused with another one. A couple of other things that we do see are a lack of sitemaps. So sitemaps are your way of communicating to Google exactly which pages are on your site and exactly which pages on your site you want to have indexed. So if you're not including a sitemap, then it's a pretty large mistake. Similarly, if your sitemap is included, but it's got every single page on your site on it, which probably includes some pages that you'd rather not have indexed, I'd recommend looking at that. And the last point on this list is poor internal linking. So if internal linking is your way of signifying the importance of pages in your site to crawlers. For example, if your homepage will usually have the most amount of internal links pointing to it, it'll be shown as the most important to Google because it's got the most internal links. So you can use internal links to signify important pages on your site, and some people just don't take advantage of this enough. So again, that's an e-commerce mistake that we see. So just to recap on a few of the key points that we've gone through, SSL certificates should really be a standard. They are a ranking factor. They are good for users and they are good for conversions. You should be collecting as many reviews as possible. Again, you can use this from a social proof point of view to help sell your products, or you can also use it in terms of schema. So you can add schema markup to your site and pull star ratings through to your search listings, which will give you higher click-throughs in search. Another thing is to offer multiple payment methods. This is less of a search consideration and more of a user consideration. Steer clear of any intrusive interstitials and pushy sales techniques, and stay on top of your site structure, your filters, your canonicals, and your internal links. And those 5 points, if you manage to abide by those sort of rules, you're going to be in pretty good standing with your e-commerce site. So that actually brings us to the end of the webinar. So if anyone's got any questions, there's a chat box on the side. We have received a few questions via email today. If you have any questions at the moment, you can email natalie@clicky.co.uk. But we're going to go through a couple that we've already had. So one of the questions is, what are the most common technical mistakes people make on e-commerce sites that impact SEO performance? I've kind of touched on it in the slides anyway, but it's the fact that people don't stay in control of their filters on their site, and they create an unbounded amount of pages, confuse crawlers, and sort of dilute their crawl budget as well. So one of the biggest mistakes that I see is people not taking hold of those filters and not signifying the primary versions of pages or the ones that they want Google to crawl and index. So next question is, what would you say are the most important metrics to measure e-commerce SEO success? These ones are pretty simple. As with any business, you're looking at the bottom line. So for me, I would always look at sessions and revenue, just the two primary metrics that I would look at. And this one's quite an interesting one. This is the last question. So within the site structure, which pages should I be paying the most attention to? Is that product pages, category pages, or your homepage? There's no really right or wrong answer to this, but you tend to find that product pages, as long as they're well optimized in terms of the product name is in the page title, that there's a good product description, and that all of the sort of on-page elements are optimized, they kind of look after themselves. Category pages are where you tend to see the most gain, and your homepage obviously is going to drive a lot of traffic. But out of those, I would probably pay the most attention to category pages in terms of your site structure and really try and optimize those. Okay, so that's all of the questions that we've had. I don't believe that there are any more. But as with our last webinar, if you do have any questions, please feel free to email us. You can either email my colleague Nat, that's natalie@clicky.co.uk, or you can email me directly at alex.wright@clicky.co.uk. And that's us. Thank you very much for tuning in.